Welcome to the Orton Gillingham Podcast, a Brainspring production. Today, we're joined by Jordan Toma, an inspirational author who overcame multiple learning disabilities to become the #1 youth motivational speaker and youth advocate in the United States. Keep listening.
Hi, Kara.
Hi, Esther.
Welcome, everybody. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Jordan Toma, the inspiring author of I'm Just a Kid with an IEP. Jordan's journey of navigating life with a learning disability and overcoming the challenges of an IEP, which stands for Individualized Education Plan or Program, has resonated with so many people. His story highlights resilience, self-advocacy, and the importance of support systems, especially from his biggest advocate, his mom, which we'll talk more about Jordan's mom in a little bit. Jordan's mission is to empower students, parents, and educators by sharing his experiences. And today we'll be diving deeper into his journey and the impact his work has had on people. So welcome, Jordan. We're really excited to talk with you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah,
and thank you for being here, Jordan. We are so excited to have you here. Maybe could you start out by telling us a little bit about your story and a little bit about your background, how you got to the place where you wrote the book, I'm Just a Kid with an IEP.
Yeah, so I struggled a lot in school, and as far as I can remember, like, every time I went to school, I would always just want to know what was going on. I remember just being like, I just want to go to school and feel like I know what's going on, and I just wanted that's all I wanted to do. And I never felt like I got it. Like I would sit in class and I would go to the next class. And then all of a sudden I'd be the end of the day and I'd be like, I don't know anything. I didn't write anything down. I can't read my handwriting. And everything just kind of piled on top of each other. And slowly I started to just give up, like slowly, I really going back. I remember the first time I realized it was in second grade and we were learning how to tell time on those little plastic clocks. And I remember like I just couldn't figure it out. And I was looking at everyone, they were all like doing it and getting it. And I was like, why can't I get it? But I didn't like think much of it. And then a couple of days went by, and as I was getting older, I would read out loud. And I remember I wouldn't be able to say the words like everyone would say it, and I would sound different. And I started to realize like something, I didn't feel right and I didn't feel good about it. And then I started to just do nothing, and I didn't want to do it. And my mom was just always there. As long as I can, was always there, just like trying to get me to do my homework, trying to get me to stay on track, trying to keep me organized. And as soon as my mom talked about anything within school, I would just like lose my mind because it was just a place where I didn't feel like I was good enough with anything. And then, when you're young, you kind of don't really get what's going on, but you're just kind of going with it and you're realizing. And then around fourth grade, my parents took me out of Catholic school because Catholic school just doesn't have the programs like the state schools do. So they realized I needed a little more support. I went to a public school, it was a new school, and that's when I realized when the bell rang, I would go to a different room. And I would go to a different room, and that's when I realized, hey, like this room is where we go, and then we never see the rest of the kids. You're always in that one room, and then that's when everything starts changing. Like trying to fit in and all that stuff comes into play.
right.
And that was like, where like things started getting hard when it came to my self-esteem and my self-worth, comparing myself to others and really I remember thinking like, hey, like, because when you're young, like you say, oh, we're in the dumb class, like all the kids say it.
Right.
And and the other kids say it and they don't even know how mean they're being. And then us being in the class, we would always go, oh, we're the dumb kids. And we would all feel, we all believe that. And we lowered our standard, of our who we are because of what class we were in, even though it wasn't true.
Right.
But, we would get a word bank. We would have test readers. We would be, at a little bit of a slower pace, extra time. I used to not want to sit by the door because I didn't want anyone else to see me there.
Yeah.
And and that like moment, like in fourth grade, like became like this foundation for me of like, hey, I'm the dumb kid and I'm always going to be the dumb kid. And then all through public school, I just thought like that, and that's all I thought. And I just thought like, hey, I don't get it. And I never like pushed past that and said, hey, like, how am I going to figure out a way to get this, And I had some good teachers though in my life that made me feel like, a person like like they like saw me like that were part of my research from teachers. So like I still felt like I had some like self-worth there, but coming
Yeah.
home, not homework, studying for tests, like that was like out of the question because I just couldn't get it. And my mom tried everything, tutors, psychologists, just everything.
Mm.
But it was just, it just that would like laid kind of the foundation for me early on. And
Jordan, can I ask you a question? Um, did you have, when did you get tested and when did you get your IEP? What grade level were you in?
so it was fourth grade. So it was like right after Catholic school, like third, fourth grade, I
Okay.
went and got tested, got my IEP because that's when I transitioned. And then they had like the support in place for me.
Were you formally tested for dyslexia at that time?
Yes, I was formally tested at like an off-site center. I think my parents had to, pay off-site, like not by the school. They did it, and then they got it, and they brought me into the public school with that.
So when you were in the special ed classes, did you feel like it was helping you? I know you were embarrassed to be in there and it was a stigma about it, but did you get anything out of it as far as help techniques that would help you, or were they doing individualized teaching, explicit teaching to teach you how to read? I mean, did you deep down feel like it was helping you, but not enjoying it because of the social aspect, or was it not really resonating or helping you at all at that
I
point?
would, so it was more like in like what was helping me was like I felt comfortable there. Like if I read out
Mm-hmm.
loud and messed up, like that was okay. Like
Yeah,
I took more
Mm-hmm.
chances in that way.
yeah,
But also what helped me there was like the one-on-one setting. Like when I had a test question, like
yeah.
the teacher would sit down and like, okay, let's look at this.
Okay,
When you're in a classroom with all the kids, you don't want to go up to the front.
right.
It's like, you don't want to do it. So like when that helped me, reading the test, reading the question, that was helpful. But
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't like specific techniques when it came to like learning how to like read and get through things. It was
Okay,
more of, hey, if you need support, we are here. Don't worry, no one's gonna judge you, that kind of
okay.
thing. And that was
Mm-hmm.
like good for all of us. Like we all
Sure.
like felt comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of it because it's like part of you wants to be with all the kids,
Mm-hmm.
but part of you also doesn't because with that risk comes, hey, I might have to get called up on the board and
Right.
write on the board, and I won't be able to spell any of the words, or I'm gonna have
Right.
to read out loud, or I'm gonna be nervous taking a test. So
Mm-hmm.
you're in this weird spot where
Mm-hmm.
it's good for you and you
Mm-hmm.
like it, but you also it's not good for you in that way you see yourself, and
Right.
it's really hard as a kid to
Yeah.
explain it. But you guys know
Yeah,
what I mean, right? It's
for
just like
sure.
very tough.
Yeah.
We hear these stories all the time from people, and every podcast I say this. We speak with people who have dyslexia, and they talk about their childhood and growing up, and everybody has the same story. I mean, every kid feels exactly what you just explained.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one that we talk to. So it's heartbreaking when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's hard, and then like as you become an adult, like if you speak to these kids, like now adults, like even me, like
Mm-hmm.
even though everything in my life that I've done, I still carry that
Yeah.
with me. That feeling is always
Yes.
with me. I
Yes.
like I don't let it like get in the way, but I
Mhm.
see it come back in certain situations, and I gotta be like, whoa, Jordan, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
don't go there,
Right.
because you can go right back to that like
Yeah.
feeling like a nothing and not good enough, and then
And I,
because that's how you feel.
Jordan,
Exactly.
you're hitting on something that's kind of near and dear to my heart um, because my daughter has dyslexia too, and she's 24. And how, when you say, I can go back to that place easily, how do you help somebody, even for me as a mom with a daughter who's 24 that has those, kind of those, I don't want to say trauma, but it is,
Well, it
Right,
it is
right,
is.
kind of
right.
trauma.
Yeah.
How do you even at that age say, here is a tool or here's a strategy to kind of work around it? Because these kids need that, and even adults, they need it. And like Esther said, we talk to full-grown adults that still have those thoughts of a teacher that said something or something that's happened to them. What's your advice for somebody who is struggling through those memories that they just can't seem to get beyond?
So yes, I know exactly what you mean, and I deal with it too. But what I tell the kids when I go to schools, and last night I just did, I do a lot of the Paul Mitchell schools,
Mm-hmm.
and they're more adults. They're 18
Mm-hmm.
to 65 years old. So, and all of them are the same thing you're saying. They still carry that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I tell them is this, and I do it for myself. I say, look, you're all of us wind up at a different pace, right? We all wind up differently. And I say, and I always tell them, like, your finish line is not where someone else's finish line is.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it took you, maybe your daughter, 24 years to wind up, right? Or 20 years. But when the gift here, like especially the ones that struggle and have that trauma, the longer it takes to wind up, the better the takeoff. So I try to show them, like, hey, yeah, you know what? Maybe everyone else is wound up already, right? And then you felt that way and you felt like so beneath everyone. They wound up soon, but it took you a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
That's because you're going to take off. And when you take off, and I tell them, I'm like, everything that you've been through, right? Your daughter, me, all of us, everything that we
Mm-hmm.
had to overcome in school and just ourself and our life and how we feel around others and comparing ourselves, all of that leads us to opportunities in our life that only we can see. So I tell them, hey,
Right.
if your daughter, she's going to get to a point where she's going to see all these opportunities that no one in the world can see but her because of what she
Mm-hmm.
overcame.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be able to grab them and know exactly what to do with them because of that. And that's like the gift of your struggle is your strength. And I show the kids that, like, you don't want it to be easy your whole life. You don't want
Mm-hmm.
that because life is not easy.
Right.
And the gift here is like, hey, yeah, you had to struggle. Yeah, teachers did say mean things, but you kept showing up. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the grit that you built up. Now you're 24, you're ready for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the next time you want to compare yourself to somebody, because I do it all the time. Like when I was an advisor, I'm still an advisor. I'm a financial advisor.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I sat next to guys, that graduated from Yale and Cornell. And I
Mhm.
remember I graduated from Centenary, right? No one knows where Centenary, everyone knows where Yale is, right?
Mhm.
And I remember saying to myself, like looking at Ivy League schools, like Lehigh, I would be like, they graduate from all these good schools, and I remember saying, I'm comparing myself to them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. I said that guy might have something I don't have. Maybe he
Mhm.
graduated from Lehigh, right? I'll never do that.
Mhm.
But I just failed out of high school. I failed 11,000 practice tests to get here.
Mhm.
I did everything I could to get here. I'm ready too. I'm ready in my own way, and I have something that he doesn't have, and he has
Mhm.
something I don't have. But that's what makes us special. And I tell the kids that to
Right.
understand that, like, you have something that they don't have, and they have something that you don't have.
Mhm.
So
But
that's
I
how
think,
we let it go.
but even from reading your book, and kind of going through, reading your journey, which was so hard, but there was a little bit of confidence that you kept digging deep for, and like where does that confidence come from? Because like you said, you're sitting next to somebody that went to Yale.
Right.
Where, how do you find that confidence to say, you know what? I'm just as smart. I can do this, because most people, I think, would just they'd feel broken
Defeated.
and defeated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That,
you automatically just give up. And I was right there. But then what I used to do is, and it helped me, like, that's why I talk about like finding someone that believes in you. I used to listen, like my mom, I always talk about my mom. My mom was always on my case and she was so annoying, right? In a positive way. But she always would tell me like all the great things about me.
Mhm.
Always. And I act like, Mom, just leave me alone. I don't want to hear it. And I tell the kids and everyone, even adults, like, think about the people in your life, the ones that really believe in you and talk about all the great things about you.
Mhm.
Those are real about you. That's real stuff. Like no one else can see that but them. That is real. You need to hang on to that. So the next time you're sitting there and you start to doubt yourself, remember what your mom said, your dad said, that teacher said, maybe a grandma.
Mhm.
Like, and that's what I used to do. And I'm like, and I would think about like all the things my mom used to like, Jordan, you're this, you're that. I'd be like, I am. Like, forget everything else. And then I would
Right.
just go to work, and then it would come to life. And then as I would get a little bit further, I would see a little bit further. And then I would be like, wait, it's actually happening. My mom was right. And then I just needed a little bit, like everyone just needs a little bit of belief to just take
Yeah.
that step, and then they prove it to themselves. Like, wait a minute, I want some more, and then they go more, and then it becomes who they are.
Right.
And it's not like, hey, that guy went to Lehigh, that
Yeah.
girl graduated from Harvard, right? It's like, hey, I'm Jordan Toma, and I went to Centenary, but
Yeah.
I got what I got. I'm gonna go use it,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter where you went.
Well,
We're gonna. Doesn't matter.
You as a person are more than your grades. You're more than where you went to school. You're more, and that's what I think, that's what your mom was showing you, is like, you deep down, everybody has these amazing attributes, and it's way more than grades in school or anything like that. So, I mean, the sheer grit that you had,
Yeah.
you use that word grit, and that's a
Right.
perfect word for it. As reading your book, just the sheer grit to keep going and study and study and study. You know, all of that, all of the affirmations that your mom was giving you, made you, probably was really what was pushing you through, because you started to believe it, and you can't really have grit like that unless you believe in yourself. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of kids struggle, is they don't have anybody that pours into them that way. And so,
Right.
amazing that you're going to these schools and giving that to kids. And we've seen videos, and it's like you're a rock
Yeah.
star, man. I
Oh,
mean,
it's so fun. It's so
these
I
kids
love
are
it.
screaming. It makes your ears bleed. I mean, they're screaming when you walk in the room. So that's
It's so fun.
kudos to you. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
And
great
a
to
lot of
see.
times with the kids too, and like even adults, like I try to show them like it's the process of it. Like it's not the outcome. Like I remember studying for those tests. And like you said, we're not like on paper. Like I ask kids all the time, even last night, I said, if someone read your life on paper and never got to know you, like would they think like they'd be like, no, I don't want anyone doing that, right?
Yeah.
But if someone sat down and had coffee with you and met you, like that's the real you. Like that's your
Right.
personality. That's who
Exactly.
you are. Forget the paper.
Right.
And I tell them, like, I remember when I was studying for those exams to be an advisor, it was like the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And I would rewrite the glossary just to memorize the words because I couldn't pronounce the words. So I just do note cards all night long. And I remember saying to myself, like, I learned this along the way, especially in college. I said, even if I never pass this test, like who I become throughout this process is worth more than passing the test. And so I tell the kids that, like, whatever you're doing right now in your life, like, if you're giving it everything that you have and you're working hard and you're doing everything you can to get through this, the process of who you become is what you take with you in your life, not the end result, the test score, whatever, like whatever you're going for. So that's what you have to believe in. Like you got to believe in who you're becoming. And they all like kind of like take a deep breath and understand that, because like the pressure's kind of off now. It's like, all right, forget like getting the A. Let's give it all we have and watch who I become. And you're going to be ready, I promise. But if you stop and you allow these moments to stop you from, you never get to that moment of like, hey, look what I did.
Right.
And when I go to these schools, my job in there, when I go in there, I want these kids to know that they're really one moment away. But it might be 10 years from now, 18 years from now, 24 years, but it's just one moment away. And the whole journey will make sense when you get to that moment, but you got to get there.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's what I want to show them, because that gives them the hope. Like I had it when I was in my book, I had my mom, but I want to be like, not the mom for them, but like the reason they remember, hey, this is the day Jordan was talking about. I can't quit here. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get there.
Yeah.
And I love that your message to the schools and to the kids is for the kids that are struggling, but you, like Esther said, you seem to be impacting every single student there. And that's what I love about your message is really, it's really to tell the kids that are struggling to speak up and advocate for themselves. But then you also have the kids that may not be struggling in school, but they still need that same message too.
Same exact message. Oh, I ask these 3 questions when I go there. I always say, and I make them do it. Like there'll be 700 kids, and I say, how many of you here struggle in school? And I raise my hand with them. Their hands go up. Then I say, how many of you struggle outside of school, home life, anything? Their hands go up. And then I ask them another one. This is like my most important one I like to ask. I say, how many of you here struggle with something that you've never told anyone about? And all their hands go up. And you see that, and I tell them to look, like we're all in this together. Like there's not, and they all look around. And in the beginning, they're afraid to raise their hand because like they don't want, but I show them like we're all in this, like we're together, like no one's alone here, and that is your strength, and it's gonna be okay. And it's really cool to see because they're middle school kids or high school kids,
Yeah.
and like everyone's still trying to be cool and fit in, but then all of a sudden their guards down and the real comes out. It's really it's really
Yeah.
awesome to see, and they all kind of come together.
Well, let me ask you this, Jordan. I know, just from being a mom with a daughter with dyslexia, that during your school years, you're so in your own head about your own struggles, right? And now that you're an adult and you're going to schools and you're talking to kids and you're asking them about who struggles outside of class, who is struggling with something that you never told about, how has your perspective kind of been enhanced or changed, knowing that there's so many kids dealing with so many things right now and that you're there to inspire them?
Oh, it changed. Like when I first started this, like, cause you evolve. You never know what's gonna happen. I mean, I never knew I would do this. Was never like part of the plan. And I would go, my first time I ever spoke was like in a little library with like 10 kids, and it was all kids that were in the resource room. And I never knew how this would evolve. And I always thought like I'm gonna focus on the kids like that were like me. But then that I remember myself in school how I was. And
Mm-hmm.
then as I started getting 700 kids and all these kids, 1,000 kids in a room, I said, wait a minute, like it's not about struggle. This message is not about struggling in school. It's about struggling everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're the valedictorian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your hand's going up. Their hand is going up.
Right.
So it changed my whole view on like what's really going on with these kids in school, and how if I go into a room and there's 1,000 kids, I have no idea which one it is, and I can't judge, I can't guess, right? I have no idea,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to make sure that every time I go in there, I give it all that I have. I give everything so I can reach everyone, and then it opened my eyes really to what I'm actually doing, because like I thought I was just helping kids that struggled in school, but then
Mm-hmm.
as I did it, I was like, wow, it's helping everyone. Like
Yeah.
I remember this. I get messages when I'm done speaking. I mean, I had this one student walk up to me, and it was 1,200 kids, and they came up to me and they said, "Hey, I was going to end my life today, and now I'm not."
Wow.
And I had no idea.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I gave them a hug.
Yeah.
Or I'll get messages, "Hey, do you have any more of those anxiety necklaces?" And I'll drop it off to the school, and I'll give their name, and then the principal will be like, "I would have never known, never known like that kid." Never known in a million years that kid was struggling. So like
Yeah.
it really changed. Like now I know when I go into a school, like I'm like, it doesn't matter who you are. So they say how many kids? I say how many kids? As many as you can fit. I just need this much space to run around.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's interesting because when you talk to the kids like that, you're really helping them to look at their lives more objectively and identify who they are. What is your identity? Your identity again is not your grade, it's who you are deep down inside. And so doing this experience has really reshaped, I should say, your own identity as well. I mean, as you said, I never thought it would be like this or that I would have this impact. But so how has your identity, your self-identity changed since you started doing all this? Have you learned something about yourself that is brand new? I mean, we're always learning new, right?
I mean, I've learned how important it is to like be there for people. Like I learned how important it is to listen to people
Mm-hmm.
and give them an opportunity to speak and feel seen. I learned how important it is to make someone feel special. Like I just learned how important it is just to be like a good like I was always like a good person, I guess, but like
Mm-hmm.
I really like I think it took my personality and just like enhanced it in a way of like
Mm-hmm.
I look at everyone like I
Mm-hmm.
look at everyone a lot different now, like in a sense of, hey, like I don't know what they've been through to get here. I don't know what they're going through. So like I'm just extremely like empathetic,
Mm-hmm.
and I always just want to like help.
Mhm.
And I mean I've always been that way, but it's just given me this
Yeah.
feeling like I almost like can see it in their eyes
Yeah. I
of people. You know what I mean? I can't explain. I could just see someone. I'm like, that person needs me to just and I'll talk to them like at a rest stop like I'll tell you a crazy story. I was out in Idaho driving across the state of Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
and I just like saw this this family, and I said, like, I had a book in my hand. I was like, I said, hey, I want to give this book to you guys. And I was talking
Mm.
to the woman, and she was like, my son really needs that. Like, it's so
Mm.
bad right now. Like, it was just so, and I just like felt it. And I
Yeah.
went over, like, I didn't know who I am, nothing. I just started talking to them. I gave
Yeah.
him the book, gave him a pat on the back,
Yeah.
let him know it was going to be all right. Like, I didn't know anything about his life,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but it just like, that's kind of things that changed for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, being on the lookout, kind of almost on high alert, and just like feeling like I could just, be there for someone.
Right.
Well, Jordan, how did you go from being someone who didn't want to talk about dyslexia to somebody that's, like you said, walking up to somebody on the street saying, here's my book, read it? Because that's a hard place to get to, too. Something that you've covered your entire life. All of a sudden, you've written a book. I see you on social media. You're passing your book out on the plane, on the street, leaving. I've seen you leaving it at a movie theater, which I just think that's the greatest thing that you could do. And how do you get to a place where you are confident enough to say, here's who I am. Here's my struggles that I've battled my entire life, and now I'm going to share it.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it takes time, right, to like prove to yourself like of who you are. And I've gotten to a point now where I know exactly who I am. I know how I work. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. But I know the things that I'm not good at does not define me
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to my success or what I want to do in my life. Like, I know that. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
know in my heart that I know, like still, when I have to leave a tip, I count on my fingers, right? I
Mm-hmm.
hide it under the table, like I'm counting. I'm like, I never know. Like, I can't do it off the top of my head ever.
That's why we
But I
have
used to,
fingers,
like,
Jordan. That's
yeah,
why we have
yeah,
fingers.
right. I used to feel bad, like, and I'm still not a good reader. I still mess up when I write emails. I forget, like, they're not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned that all of that is not, there's no correlation if that's going to make me a less of a person. I know that.
Right.
And I didn't know that for a long time. Like, even like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember, like, I didn't have a date to the junior prom. My senior year, I didn't have a date to the senior prom. I met a girl outside of school, and I remember I was so nervous to ask her to my prom because I thought all the kids were going to tell her that I was in the research room and she was never going to talk to me again. And I remember being like, that was like I was just so nervous. All I said is, if I can get through tonight and nobody tells her,
Uh,
I'm going to be okay. And it's like, and I remember, and now, like you're saying now, I'm like, I'm telling everybody, but because I lived my life
Mm-hmm.
and then I got out in the world and I
mm-hmm.
saw the people that went to Ivy League school. I saw the people that graduated top of their class, and I was right next to them. And now we're all on the same playing field, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't, hey, who had the A's, who got the best SAT score now. Now it was, who's going to show up on the hard days every
Yeah.
day and never give up.
Yeah.
And that is what I've learned to do my whole life. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
now I know.
Yeah.
So that's where the confidence comes from now and how I
Jordan,
figured it out.
I've told my kids, you know, ever since, they were little, that nobody is ever going to ask you for your certificate of graduation.
Right.
Nobody's going to, ask you what grade you got in, math, or what grade you got in English.
Right.
And if you go see a doctor, you don't really care where they went to school, right?
Right. You don't
And
really know. You don't even know. Who
and
knows,
then
right?
and then I say, but if you can speak for yourself, that's half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Were you one of those kids that could just really talk themselves out of anything with,
I don't like growing up, I didn't have confidence, right? But I was just always myself. Like, I was more worried about like everything I was dealing with in my own head, really,
Mhm,
than like, I talk about this with my mom. Like, I wasn't like the kid that like wanted to be cool. I didn't care where I sat for lunch. Like, I wasn't like that. I was more like, I feel dumb. I'm so dumb. And like, I was
mhm,
so mad at myself for being
Yeah.
me. And I
Yeah.
hated me.
Oh.
Instead of like, that's all I was so consumed with how bad
Mm-hmm.
I felt about me, and then
Mm-hmm.
I got myself into trouble because it was just easier to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But I always had like somebody that kind of liked me, like a teacher or somebody was like kind of like Jordan. Like, they were always like, I was always able to connect with someone everywhere I went. Like, someone, I always had someone to connect with. And I always felt like that kind of helped me,
Mm-hmm.
in my life in the beginning. I always had like, a teacher or someone just kind of liked me just for me, and I didn't really know that. Now I'm thinking, looking back, but they kind of gave me a chance, always gave me a second chance. And I think I was that type of kid, but
Yeah.
I remember this one lady said, you're I got in trouble at camp. I used to get in trouble at camp all the time. And she looked at me one day and she said, "Hey, just so you know, your cute looks not going to get you so far much longer." So like, I would always be in like a situation where like they would kind of, I think they would, I was a small kid, I was little, I was a lot smaller than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the type of kid I was, and I drove my mom crazy.
Yeah.
It was a tough run. But I didn't see myself as that person, right? This was people looking at me. I'm looking back, trying to like remember that.
Right.
But like, to answer your question, like, I wasn't like someone that was like always talking my way out of things and being like savvy like that. I was
Right.
more like, I didn't care what happened.
Yeah.
I
So
was like,
so then
whatever.
so when does a Jordan come out to the world that you can go door to door and selling windows and you
Well,
can go to somebody's house and sell insurance? Like, where does that person come from? If
right, because it's scary. Because like, you got to walk in
Yeah.
someone's house and sell insurance, and I remember sitting down with people that were making $2 million a year, right? And I was just like coming in, like, but where everything changed was I got denied from every college, and then like, if you read my book, right? So then
Yep.
I applied to Centenary in Hackettstown.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go. I never thought I was going to go. I got suspended like the last day of school. I came home. I finally had an envelope that was big. I opened it up. It said, "You got into Centenary." But then I read, "You go to school all summer one day." And I was convinced my mom made this program up to ruin my life. I really believed it. Like, my mom went to the college, made me ruin my summer. Like, just everything I thought about my mom was coming to
Yeah.
life. And, but when I got to that program, this is where everything changed. I was 18. And I remember I said, what if my mom, I remember like, I got there and I realized like, every time in my life I got to that point where school was coming up, the anxiety would kick in, papers, math, all that stuff. I knew that was going to be there. I always quit on myself and I gave up. That feeling always was the same. And I remember looking at myself and seeing like myself in the mirror. And I remember saying like, I hate this feeling. I hate the Jordan that I see. I just remember being so mad at me. And I just said, like, what if my mom is like right? Like, all the things my mom has been telling, what if she's right? And I don't know what happened that day. I remember I wrote it in my book. I just like turned the lights off. I set my alarm and I woke up that next morning. I sat in the front. I took my notes. I couldn't understand my handwriting. I did my first English assignment ever. And then I never, ever through high school did an assignment, handed it in, and got it back ever in my life and got a good grade. I never even handed things in, or I would hand it in and it was so bad they just put like an X on. Like, I never got like a grade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a 1.7, so I really never did anything. And I did my first assignment ever, and I handed it in, and I got it back on my desk like a few days after, and I got an A. And it was like, and I remember going like, the first thing I said, my mom was right. This is crazy. And then I said, in my brain, I said, I just sold myself short for the last 18 years of my life, thinking I couldn't do this. And I had like this regret, like this, like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, all I had to do was maybe work 10 times harder than everyone to get it. But I was right there. I was
Right.
right there. And I never thought I can do it. And when I proved that to myself, I remember saying to myself, if I can do English, math, I can write, if I can do this, I can do anything, anything. And once I overcame like my biggest mountain, which was school and reading, and that was like my scary, like, if you said, Jordan, what's the scariest place on earth? It was like the classroom. If I can do that, whatever comes next that isn't that, I can do it. So if you say, Jordan, you're going to sell insurance, whatever, let's go do it,
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where the confidence changed, where I was like, hey, I always resorted back. Hey, I graduated college. I did chemistry,
Yeah.
I figured out a way to get math done.
Yeah.
I would always resort back to that because that was like my biggest fear. And I used that. And then I would use it when I did insurance and I was an advisor. I was like, I passed the Series 65. Like, I did that. Like, I can go in and sell insurance to a guy that makes $2 million a year, whatever. I can do this,
So,
and that's where everything changed.
bottom line, always listen to your mother.
Right. I was
Always
right. My
listen
mom
to
was
your
right.
Mama is always right. That's
So,
right.
Jordan,
Right.
did you tell your mom that she's always right? Or
I said, Mom, you were right. It was hard for me to say you're always right.
what did she say?
I told you, I
That's
well,
right.
I told you
well,
so,
That's
right?
we
that
know.
that program when it was over, I
Yeah.
was done, and because my mom like called the school, my mom begged them to accept me,
Yeah.
and they said to my mom, they're like, hey, like on paper, we can't, you don't accept students like Jordan. They don't succeed here. My mom was like, no, you got to meet him. He can do this.
Yeah.
And my mom knew I needed a change of scenery because that's what we need. We need like a whole new, like my mom believed in me, right? But like even for your daughter, right? If she goes to college, she goes somewhere, someone else believing in her too, like on top of you believe, it's like, wait a minute, someone else sees it too, and you start to like cultivate it. You kids need that. Everyone needs that. And I had other people at Centenary like believing in me that I never had before. And when I was done with the program, the guy that my mom must have annoyed forever, the director of the program, he was a really cool guy. I'm friends with him now, but he was like a tough guy when it came to like, hey, you want to change your life, this is what you're going to do, and this is how it's going to be done. This is college, and wherever you came from, we don't care. This is where you change your life. And he called me up to the stage and he said, hey, we want to give you an award. And it was a plaque that said the hardest worker. And then I graduated the program with a 4.0. Wow. And as soon as I got off that stage, I called my mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mom, I got a 4.0. But I hated my mom the whole way.
Exactly.
She drove me there. But
Yeah.
that was the first person I called. I said, Mom, you were right. And she started crying on the phone. Then I almost started to cry. I hung up real fast.
Yeah.
Because it was like she was right,
Yeah.
Can you share, Jordan, like what is something that your mom said to you that you always remember? Is there a specific quote
Yes.
or saying that she always said to you that sticks in your mind?
Yeah, she would always tell me, like, when I was really little too, when I was like a little kid, like I remember this, like I would always like they're playing with the kids on the street. She'd always say, Jordan, you have something special. You have this charisma. Like people like you. They come to you. Like you're just like she would just say this about me, and I didn't know what that word meant. I didn't even know what it meant. But I guess she noticed it. Like wherever I went, I always had like I would make friends. I would be friendly because I was just being myself. So I was just having a good time, and I always had that at least. And my mom would always like heighten that for me and just remind me of that.
Yeah.
And that always kind of like stuck with me because wherever I would go, like I would always make a friend, like I remember I was sitting in the middle of Times Square by myself, just like sitting there. It was 2010. I remember there's like these red chairs over there. I don't know if you've ever been to Times Square. There's red chairs everywhere. And I was just sitting there, and like my parents were somewhere and I was hanging out, and all of a sudden I had like 7 people at my table. We were all just talking, but I didn't talk to any. They came and sat with me. So like I remember my mom saying like, I'm like, Mom, I don't know what just happened. And then the guy's like, hey, you want to hang out with my son? Here's my son's number. Because we were like 20 at the time. I'm like, what the heck is going on? But like that, my mom, like like all these things like in my life that my mom always used to tell me, like that helped me
Yeah.
kind of feel like I had something to offer in
Which
this world.
which makes sense of why you connect with the kids so well. So what to take us through, like you're in this career, you're making money, you're doing amazing. Tell us, like, where was your turning point to write a book, and then where was the turning point to then take your show on the road and go talk to the kids in these school districts?
Yeah, so I was an advisor, right? I had like a good life. I had my wife, I had my kids. I had like what I thought like, you do when you get older, And but like I am not like I'm not like I would look at myself like I am not an advisor, I'm like I'm not a serious. I don't want to wear a tie. I'm not like that serious. I'm just not. So when I think that's what made me a good advisor. That I would go in homes and I would be like, like hanging out with everybody, whatever. I didn't care if they bought it or not bought it. I was just having fun and I would just do the right thing. But it made people want to buy it more, I guess. But I worked really, really hard. Like I worked hard. So I knew the job, but I was just always myself. And I remember like after like I started in 2013, 2015, the Step Ahead program asked me to go speak to the incoming kids like me. And I said, all right, I'll do it. And I didn't know anything or what I was going to say, but I just like said, okay, I'll do it. I'm an advisor now, whatever, I'll come do it. And I got up there and I spoke to the parents and the kids, and they gave me like a standing ovation. The kids were so happy and like hugging me, and I was like, "Oh, that was cool." Like I said, I see these kids have like hope now. This is like I felt like when you work, like when you're in that business, you work for like your money and your bonus.
Yes.
That's all you work for.
Mhm.
That's what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all I knew because it was just like I was a commission job.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you experience like the gift of giving someone like hope and a smile and like I'm gonna like encouragement, that's worth more than money ever. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't even think about money. You just like that's
Mm-hmm.
the best feeling in the world. Like I'll figure out my mortgage later, you know?
Mhm.
And I was like, that felt so good. And like that's and I felt good, but like I'm like, all right, I don't know how in your mind, you're like, how do I even do this? Right.
Mhm.
So I went back to work. And then like as I was working and selling insurance, you know, because I would get up at 5 in the morning, go to the gym, go to the office, and call from 9 in the morning to 9 at night every day. Cold call, get on the road, go on appointments, and do it again. That's just how you. That's the
Mm-hmm.
life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was building this business, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm just like chasing these bonuses, and like you don't even care when you make them because like it's just nothing. Like yeah, the way you know we live in America, you got to make money, you got to pay your bills, you got to take care of your family. Like that's like, but like it doesn't. It wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in my mind, you know, I was like, I have a family, I have a mortgage, I have kids. You know, my mom, my dad. Like, how do I tell them? Like, it's not. What I don't really. I don't think. I don't want to do this. Like, I don't like this. And it was hard. And I said to myself, I remember saying to myself, like, I I wanted I want to help kids. I want to do this. So I started to wake. So what I would do is I knew I couldn't transition right away, and I had to come up with a plan to make this transition financially. So this is a crazy plan what I did, and I don't know. Anyone should duplicate this because I do insane things. So I started to reach out to schools, and nobody would book me because no one knew who I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I had videos online from 2017. You can find them, and nobody watched them. And I would make them. I would make them. I would make them. Try to reach kids. Try to get out there. I didn't know anything, and I paid 4 grand for postcards, and I mailed them to every single high school
Mm.
in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I spelled the word principal wrong on it. I didn't know. I spelled it the other way.
Oh.
And I got one email back that said, "You spelled principal wrong." That was it.
Oh.
No one else. I thought that was the email, like, "Hey, we want you." It wasn't it.
Oh.
And and I was like, "How am I going to do this? Whatever." And then 2018, no, 2018, a school in California called me up, said, "Hey, we're in California, have a budget of $500." I said, "I'll be there."
Oh,
And
nice.
my flight was $600, right?
Yeah,
So I was
right,
immediately negative, right? So I didn't care.
Yeah.
I went in there, had no idea what I was going to say, got up there, spoke, 700 kids. I thought I did really bad. I didn't know. I got back on an airplane. Right before we took off, I got an email from one kid said, "Hey, I was going to give up. Now I'm not going to give up." And I was like,
Mhm.
"All right, this is what that's what this is all about. This is
Yeah.
what I got to do." So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So 2019 came, all right, and my son was born in 2020. 2019 came. I knew what I wanted to do and make this move, and I had to figure it out. So what I started to do, and this is crazy, I started taking my retirement savings, all my savings, and I said, I'm going to buy some real estate. And I said, I'm a risk taker at this point in my life because, you know, I'll go back to I just graduated. I did school. I never thought I could do school, so nothing in my life is too big to do.
Right.
So
Right.
I started knocking on doors saying, "Hey, I want to buy your 2-family home. I want to buy." I didn't even know what I was doing, and I started to buy 2-family homes, and I started buying them, renting them out, and getting a little bit of cash flow and trying. All right, so I got a little bit of income, so I could focus on. And I was trying to maneuver my life so I could at least keep my lights on and pay my mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
write my book, and start this next move
Mm.
while we're having babies and everything's going crazy. My wife's like, "Are you crazy?" But
That's
and then
great.
but as you take these chances and risks, like you also build confidence. So I was like, I was doing it, it was working, everything was happening. And then then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, it was like the world shut down. And I was in my house. I had no more office anymore. Like everything was remote. And I remember I was like, what the heck am I going to do? And the app TikTok came out like around then.
Mm-hmm.
And I downloaded it because I was just sitting there. And I made a video about, you know, being in school when the psychologist comes to your room and pulls you out and makes you take the IQ test with the red and white blocks. I made this video on how all this stuff, like how I felt. And I woke up one morning and that video had 300,000 views.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, there's a lot of kids out there that can connect with this video.
Yeah.
And that kind of started my brain like, hey, like this is not over. I got to figure this out. And then I kept going. I was buying more real estate. Everything was kind of making sense. 2021, 20. And then one day I got like 20 million views. And then I got 40 million views. And then the Today Show called. And then everything started happening. And then every school, but in the process, I'm writing my book. I started writing my book way before everyone even knew me. So I just finished my book right when everything started going crazy online. And it kind of just, but that's why I tell you, you got to go for it, because you never know when the time's going to come, and you got to be ready.
Right.
And the book it was just timing. It was just, luck. And then the book was done. Every publisher told me no. I emailed every publisher, every literacy agent. They all told me no. There's errors in this book. And I'm like, come on, like we got to help these kids. You know how many kids will read this and I know it's going to be okay? No, nobody would do it. I went out and got a booking in Albuquerque, New Mexico, flew out there and spoke. So now I was getting some requests, made my website, was doing everything crazy. And then I told my wife, I said, Kate, I said, I'm right at the tipping point here. I'm going to stop selling insurance, basically live off my renewals, what we can barely live on. And my back's going to be against the wall, and that's going to force me to make this other thing work. And I had to go there, and it was like a scary place because like we just had the baby, like, I was like, that's the mother of creativity, right? When like everything is falling apart and you got to make it work. And I've been there before in my life, so I was okay. And I said, this is where I love to be. And I just pushed through right there, and I pushed through, and then now it got me here. And then my book went out. I sold, 100,000 copies. It was the top 800 book on all of Amazon. Everything went crazy, and it just happened like that last bit of the end.
Yeah, I love
it's crazy.
I love your tenacity. I love just love the vibrance that you have, and it's what a great story. Yeah. Tell us about your next step, Jordan.
My next so right now, like I really just want to continue to get into schools. I love doing it. Like I love being with the kids, but I also want to, I want to start doing like more corporate events, like more like I did last night, like the adults, because a lot of the adults are still haven't shed off that feeling of the high school self or even the middle school self, right? Or their kids are dealing with it. So it's all, relative to the message is all relative to them. And I want to break into that world, like the more corporate kind of world, but still do all the schools that I'm doing. I'm writing my second book right now called Don't Forget About the Kids in the Back. And it's about the kids that, sit in the back, the ones that are maybe quiet, the ones that are class clowns, the ones that are getting into trouble, whoever they are, the ones that are trying to be invisible. And I'm writing it for the teachers in the schools that, hey, like, they're not trying to be bad. They're not trying to be invisible. They want to be seen. This is them saying, hey, come believe in me. Like, look at me. So I'm writing a book for that.
I love that. I love that.
And I don't think there's ever been a message from someone that lived like that to explain it.
Yeah.
So that's my next book I'm working on. And then I want to open up like a school. Like I want to have schools and like have kids come. Like I have all these ideas I want to do. I'm going to do them all. I just throw them in my head.
What an inspiration you are.
Yes.
If it's okay, I want to close out with one of the quotes that you have at the end of your book.
Yes.
I'm just a kid with an IEP. Listen to my story and get inspired. Go out and write your own story. I know you all have it in you. I promise you do. That is exactly why I wrote this book, and that's why I started I'm Just a Kid with an IEP, LLC. Because I needed to know who I am now. Walk into my school when I was younger. Now I will be that person for someone else.
That's great.
Yeah. Thank you for doing
Jordan.
that.
You got it.
Yeah.
And and if your daughter ever needs any advice, she can always reach out.
Thank you.
Whatever.
And to be honest with you, it's all of that has made me think how much the parents of the kids who have struggled over the years, like we need that too. So we need someone like you to really be that voice too, because just like your mom, like we're kind of in silent, but we're there behind our kids, but it's just as heartbreaking for us as it was for you too.
Thank you so much for
Yeah, and the
coming.
parents, and that's why you got it. And like when it comes to the parents too, like I always, because I remember my mom would do anything for someone like me to like show up at my house to just talk to me.
Yeah.
And even though I wouldn't want to talk maybe, but she would just do anything to do it. And nobody ever came. And that's why when I first wrote my book, I would go door to door and deliver the book to the kids at their homes and talk to them. And just by me showing up at the front door, like I received a message 2 years ago, I did it. And she's like, hey, you came to my son's house, changed his whole life because no one's ever showed up for them. And
Yeah.
that can help like the parents so much
Yes.
because
Yes.
it just validates the message from the parents already. So
Yeah.
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
important. So I make sure I try to answer every parent. I try to help everyone. Anyone that reaches out, I try to
Yeah.
help them.
I love that. And you're doing such a great job, and thank you for doing that. Thank you for being the voice for everybody that hasn't found theirs yet. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
and then I hope they could just watch me and like see it and read it and go, and then they go write their own awesome story, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, we're
that's
looking
it.
forward to your next book.
Yeah.
When do you expect that to come out?
I don't know. So like the way that I write is like I can only I can only do it like once. Like when I'm like I can only get the idea in my head once and type it. So like it's like I'm on chapter 7 right now and I don't know when it's gonna end.
Yeah.
But like I'll just wake up one day and be like, today I'm gonna write and I'll go write, I'll go
Okay.
write, and then I'll just be done. Sometimes I write for 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, and I just write, so I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping by like maybe the beginning of the year 2025, if it depends how crazy I get. Like tomorrow I have 3 schools in one day, so like
That's
it's a
great.
lot.
Yeah.
And then like I gotta regroup my brain and get in writing mode. So
We'll be watching for it for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
yeah, it's hopefully soon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to us.
My pleasure.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Orton Gillingham Podcast, a Brainspring production. For additional content, please subscribe to our newsletter, visit our website at brainspring.com, or follow us on social media. To submit questions or comments, please email us at podcast@brainspring.com. Your feedback is always welcome.